Hello, Math Masterminds. This week we're going to be focusing on angle relationships. So I'm going to give you a mini lesson because we have new vocabulary that we're going to be hearing and using. Okay? So for angle relationships, we're going to be looking at parallel lines cut by a transversal. It states when parallel lines are cut by a transversal, 8 different angles are formed. And here we see this diagram, we see the parallel line, and we see this angle that cuts through it. That's called the transversal. And when it does that, it creates 8 angles. And we're going to talk about those angles because there's a relationship between them. The first ones that we're going to look at, and these are the vocabulary words you need to be familiar with. So, we talk about vertical angles. Okay, so we see the two angles. They are vertical. Vertical means they're across from each other. Okay, both of them are angle A, so we know that they're going to be congruent. But we also need to be mindful that they are acute angles. So we call these vertical acute angles. Okay, we also need to be mindful that they are congruent. So any vertical acute angles, and you notice here, we still have angle A, those are also congruent. So all 8 angles are congruent. We can look at our obtuse angles, and those are lettered with B. So our vertical obtuse angles are also congruent, and we see that we have them also here. So we know that. We see the term congruent here. We need to be mindful of that. And we also see the term supplementary. So we're going to talk about that a little later. When we have corresponding angles, that basically means angles that are in the same position. So if you notice, we have angle A corresponds with angle A here. They're in the same position, meaning if I cut this in half, I can take this bottom half of the line, place it on top of the top half, and that A would be in the same position. That means corresponding. And both of them are angle A, so they are congruent as well. So we call those corresponding acute angles. The next term we're going to talk about is interior. Interior means within the parallel lines. Okay? We have 4 angles within the parallel lines, and we have 4 angles outside the parallel lines. So that's where we get our interior and exterior angles. So you need to understand interior is within the parallel lines. So notice we have an angle A, and angle A, they just moved. Bringing in a new vocabulary word, alternate exterior angles. Alternate means they're on opposite sides of that transversal line. They're still angle A, so we know they are congruent, but they are on opposite sides of the transversal. They are outside of the parallel line, so therefore we call it an alternate exterior angle. Okay? Now we're going to talk about supplementary angles. Some of you may call it supplementary or supplementary. It doesn't matter. It means the same thing. When we talk about supplementary angles, those are 2 angles that equal 180 degrees. Now notice here it says an angle labeled A is supplementary to an angle labeled B. So my 2 angles are not going to meet this time. So when I have an A angle with a B angle, that gives me my supplementary angles. Because angle A is acute, angle B is obtuse. So when I put the acute angle with the obtuse angle, it gives me 180 degrees, which is a supplementary angle. Okay? So once again, anytime I have an angle B with an angle A, that gives me supplementary angles. Okay? So those are the terms that you need to know, and you need to familiarize yourself because we're going to be talking about angle relationships, and it's a lot of vocabulary, so make sure you are familiar with the vocabulary. All right, have a good one.